Hi, I'm Debbie and welcome to Book and Bujo, where I talk about all things books, bullet journals, and stationery. So today we are going through my June Readathon wrap-up. You remember back in my June TBR when I talked about participating in 4 readathons, and then my June Readathon video where I talked about, no, it wasn't 4, there was 6. Well, let's see how I did. So we'll start with Mini Star Hop with Stephanie's Bookverse, which if you have not checked out her channel, you totally should. I will leave her link down below. She is amazing, super fun, and her full-size game is so much fun to watch. She has black holes and things like that where you basically have to start over from the beginning, but you still keep all the books that you picked out before you hit that black hole. Yes, but this is a really fun game, and it was basically over a weekend, so June 9th through June 11th. Let's go to the rolls. All right, roll number 1 for Mini Star Hop Readathon. 1. And that is a star prompt, and I have all my prompts actually on the back side of my card here. So here's my star prompts, and I'm going to roll an 10-sided die, see what prompt I get, and it's a 4, and that is an audiobook. So for roll number 1, like you just saw, I got 1. Moving right along. Just start right there at the beginning. It's a very good place to start, right? I got a star and a star card. And so for that, I did roll and I got to read an audiobook. And for that, I read Voices of Poetry, or listened to Voices of Poetry by J.R.R. Tolkien. So I did, it's not really cheating because it is a book, but it was only 20 minutes long. So I hadn't gotten far, so I definitely went with something short. So Voices of Poetry, and can I tell you, it was amazing listening to J.R.R. Tolkien read his own work. Like, I just found it so fascinating, like, especially when he was reading some of the elf languages and the languages he himself created. To hear him speak it was, gave me chills. It was beautiful. If you are a Tolkien fan, I would check it out. It was great. Okay, on to roll number 2. So Mini Star Hop, roll 2. 3. 1, 2, 3. A sun prompt. So here's our sun prompts. And let's see what we're going to get. 4 again. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, hardcover. All right, let me see what I've got for hardcovers. So for roll number 2, I got a 3. So then I landed on the sun card. I still haven't got very far, but got my star card, and it was a TBR vet, and for that I did, again, was nice to myself, chose something under 300 pages, and I read Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, which is the second book in the Alice in Wonderland series. And that was enjoyable, but I think I liked it a little more than I did Alice in Wonderland. Not sure why, but I did. All right, I finished Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, so now on to roll number 3. 1. Of course. Moon card. So moon card. 9. And that is series. So continue a series. Okay, roll number 3. Yet again, I got 1. How many books am I going to have to read this weekend, right? Okay, so 1. So I got a moon card, which was to read a series, a book in a series, and for that, again, very nice myself, read book that was 1 page, and it is Death and What Comes Next, which is the 10.5 book in the Discworld series. And as part of, it was just a little short story in part of the Death series. Okay, next roll. So I finished Death and What Comes Next by Terry Pratchett. Roll number 5. Let's hope for something bigger than a 1. 2. Trudging along slowly. 1, 2, another star prompt. All right. We got a 5. Star prompt 5. Oh, another series. So the next roll number 4, was a 2. So we got 1, 2. Star card. And that also was to read a series, which I didn't actually realize I put series in there for 2 different things, but it is what it is. So then I read Reaper Man, which is the 11th book in the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. And so I did read that, and that was really good. Roll number 5, I rolled a 6, and I landed on a star. So I get to roll for a star card. Finally, something bigger than a 1 or a 2. Yay! So I rolled a 4, and under the star prompts, that comes up as an audiobook. Roll number 5. We got a 6. Oh, hallelujah. Okay, so that got us to here. Only 1 more book. And what did I choose? I chose, so again, it was a star. So star card, rolled my die, and I got audiobook. And so for that, I did listen to Mary Poppins, the first book in the series by P.L. Travers. Unfortunately, I didn't finish it. I did finish it, but not during that timeline. So I finished it the next morning. So I think I made it through 60% of the book before I had to go to bed. And I could have stayed up and finished it, but sleep is a huge priority for me. I did choose sleep over finishing that. So yes, I didn't make it. But that's all right. I at least made it to here. I finally got a big number. I made it to here. I only had basically 1 roll left, although with my track record from down here, I probably would have had 2 more books. But anyway, I almost finished Mini Star Hop Readathon. Alright, so next up was my Bookland Arcade, and for that you started with having to choose through 2 of the 4 bingo boards, and you had to get 50 points, and this is with Books and Bops. And once you hit the 50 points, then you got to submit those, and you got the final boss card. So for June, and this ran from May 20th to June 20th. In June, I read Spice Road, which was a standalone, and that gave me 7 points. Bow Before the Elf Queen, I did finish on June 1st, so I started it in the May time period, but I finished that on June 1st, and that gave me another 5 points. That was for multi-POV, because you have the POV from the woman and the male main characters. And then the rest I read all in May. I ended up with 57 points? 51 points? Somewhere in there. So I got over 50 points, and so then I got the final boss card, and as you can tell, I didn't quite finish. Well, to get a blackout, you just need 1 bingo, so 3 this way, this way, this way, you know. You know how to do bingo. I did read David Copperfield, and that was for a book over 500 pages. And I did read The Voices of Poetry. I was able to count that one. That was read in a day. Buy or Borrow and Read Immediately. So then I had Home by Nadia Korafor, and that was the 2nd book in the Binti series for Buy, Borrow, and Read Immediately. And I did finish that right at the wire. I stayed up, well, I listened to it while I was like brushing my teeth and washing my face for the night. So I just stuck that one in. And I probably stayed up a extra half hour to make sure I finished it. Recommended by 3 people. I read Dead Souls. I had a couple of subscribers leave comments that they really liked that book. And that one I did start it, but I didn't finish it till June 22nd. So that one doesn't count as a bingo. But I already have a bingo across here because I did finish that one. I just haven't colored it in yet. And then someone else's fave. So I did end up reading The Siren, but that wasn't until the end of June, so didn't count. Close your eyes and pick, and for that it was Dark is the Water and Other Weird Tales, and I did finish that one during the readathon. Edgewood for a main character overcomes a great challenge, and that one I also read during the readathon. The Last Striker, which is part of the Dark Universe series, and that has 7 or more colors on the cover, not the rainbow. And then the last one was Title can spell your name or nickname. That was so hard to find. Oh my goodness. Yeah, to find a book that has a D and a B in it, but also to then find one that has a Y is so hard. So hard. Like, I had like 16, 20 books or something on my TBR and nothing. So I had to go. So this is kind of like a web story. It was just on Cassandra Clare's blog post that had this full story in it, and it's just one snippet from 2 of the characters from the Infernal Devices series. Well, actually they're spattered throughout the entire Shadowhunter series, but it's after the bridge, the full story. So it says after the bridge, and then there's a colon, and then it says the full story. So I had to keep the full story in there to even make my name fit. But I got it. So after there's a D in bridge, there's an E in bridge, there's a B in bridge, there's a Y in story, and there's an I in bridge. So all I needed was bridge and story, and I could spell my name. So I did get a bingo across down here, and I got one here, and I got one here. So it was close. It was really just these 2 that I didn't finish during the time period. But that was really fun. So check out Books and Bops. They have some really fun readathons. They should have a haunted house one coming up in October if you want to check them out. Very fun. Okay, so that's 2. What are the other 4 that I did? Let's find out. Well, I continued with Adventures in Aeldia, the year-long read-along that I'm doing with G at Book Roast. So she has this really cool choose your own adventure map. And for Ariel, my first character, I had to visit the locked library, and I read Essence by Edna Walters, which was the final novella in the Runes series. For Karasu, who is my second character, he had to stop at the Crossroad Tavern, and he read Edge Dancer by Brandon Sanderson. So I did complete those. And then there's also Buzzwordathon, which I didn't count in here, so does that make 7 readathons? Oh my goodness. Buzzwordathon for June was Other, and I did read Dark is the Water and Other Weird Tales by Susan Earlham, which was interesting. I liked some of the stories more than others, which I think is pretty normal for a short story collection. But yeah. Then we had Camp Seasonathon, and that is with Kaylani Simply Me, and you got to pick one of 3 cabins, and I chose Cabin Bailey, and all of the cabins are named after the host's pets, which was adorable. And so there was 10 different prompts. Basically, you could choose the same book for every single prompt if you want, if it fits, which was nice and helped a lot. So I think I probably could have completed a little bit more of this if I chose different books for it, but I'm just going to keep with what I had and call it a win. So first book was Blindfold, and for that it was Dark is the Water and Other Weird Tales by Susan Earlham, which is the same that was from the last readathon talked about. And then the second one was a buddy read, and for that I read Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. I was trying to do the group book, which was Love Theoretically, but I am still like 5th on the waiting list at my library, so I am not getting it anytime soon. And then third one was Random Color Generator, and for that I got Turquoise Green. And I chose A Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. And then the fourth book was Multi-POVs, and that was Oathbringer, and that is by Brandon Sanderson. I did not complete that in June. I have completed it now, but it's July, so I can't count that. But I did get number 5, which was Big Book, 500 plus pages, and that there's many books I could have chose from for that because I had a lot over 500 pages, but I chose David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, and I did complete that one. Free pick for the 6th one, and that was Edge Dancer by Brandon Sanderson, which I also read for Adventures in Aeldia. And then number 7 was a 5-star prediction, and that was Oathbringer, which of course I did not finish, so that's 2 prompts I didn't finish out of the 10. And then 8 was a gifted book, and that was Awakened by Rachel Humphrey Daigle. 9th was middle grade. Now I read Mary Poppins. I actually had a couple middle grades this last month. And then number 10 was a random number generator, and that was also Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers. I got 8 of the 10 prompts, so I call that a huge win. And then we have the Back to Kindle Readathon, Readers C and Reading with Rylan. And they do that one every year, which is fun. It helps you try to read more of your Kindle books, especially if you have some that have been around for a while that you haven't got to. The top tier, which is 5 points each, the first one is host rated 5 stars, and I think actually both of the hosts rated The Siren by Kira Cass 5 stars. And luckily I had some projects going on, some house projects and stuff, and so I was able to just listen to an audiobook pretty much all day, and so I finished that one. The second one was a book club pick, and that one I read Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. And then the third one was a poll or a friend pick, and that one I read Dead Souls by Nikolai Gogol. So I got 5 points for each of those. And then for 3 points, the first one is indie published, and that's Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. I did not get to that reread, which is a bummer. I do still want to do that, but I did not finish it in June. I didn't start that in June either. So the second one was Multi-POV, which was Oathbringer, which we already talked about. I only got through half of it. Actually, I think I got through 60% of that book by the end of June, which was amazing. And then 3, Book You've Put Off, and that was Home by Nnedi Okorafor. I've been wanting to finish or just continue the Binti series for a while, and I did get to that one. And then Low Expectations 4, and that was Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, and I did read that one. The last tier is only 2 points each, and so the first one is Random Number Generator, which I chose from the last readathon, and that was Mary Poppins. And then A Cover By, which was Awakened by Rachel Humphrey Daigle. Has an amazing, like this huge eyeball with dragons around it. Well, you'll see it here. So yes, it is beautiful. And then a Comfort Genre, which for me is absolutely fantasy. And that one I read The Reign of the Dragon Queen, and that is by Candace Connor, and that book was great. I really enjoyed it. Then title starts with an R or an S, and I read Reaper Man, which is the 11th book in the Discworld series. And then Inclusive Rep, and I read Dark is the Water and Other Weird Tales by Susan Erlin. Okay, then we move to Once Upon a Readathon, and that is with Hannah Blackwell, and it was so much fun. So you had Team Jinn, Team Dragon, which were allies, and then you have Team Mermaid and Team Pirate, which are also allies, and then the allies fight against each other, so Dragon and Jinn fight against mermaids and pirates, and vice versa. So I was Team Dragon, and you can read books with any of the mascots. And so if I read a book about mermaids, then I would be attacking the mermaid team. If I read a book about dragons, then I'm protecting the dragon team. I read The Reign of the Dragon Queen by Candace Connor, absolutely with dragons. Awaken, Heirs of Magic by Rachel Humphrey Daigle. So it doesn't specifically say they are dragons, but by the picture on the cover, as well as kind of how they're described, they're dragon-like creatures. Spice Road by Maya Ibrahim. This one has a djinn. And then I read Reaper's Gale by Stephen Erickson, which definitely has dragons, mentioned multiple times. And then Rolling in the Deep by Mira Grant, which definitely has mermaids. The Siren by Kira Cass, which, I mean, technically they're sirens, not mermaids, but it still counts because a lot of times we'll lump sirens and mermaids together. So, creatures of the sea. So I did read all of those. And then we have Tarot Readathon, and that's with Noelle 7 Pages, which also super fun. Check out her channel. The first card was Justice, and that addresses a social issue, was the prompt, and for that I read David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. My next draw was 6 of Swords, and the prompt is a book with a journey, and for that I read Reaper's Gale by Stephen Erickson. There was definitely a lot of walking in that book, a lot of journeying. Then the 9 of Cups, which was a 5-star prediction, and that was Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. I did get through 60% of that book, but since it was a 1,200-page book, I'm counting it for this one. Basically, I drew all of these ahead of time and started reading the books, but I knew I just put Oathbringer off to the end because I knew I wasn't going to be able to finish it, and I wanted to get as many of the other books finished as I could. So Yeah, so The Emperor, book with a one word title, and for that I read Awaken by Rachel Humphrey Daigle. And then The Page of Pentacles is the shortest book on your TBR, and that was Voices of Poetry Volume 1 by J.R.R. Tolkien. Lovers, a book that features a romance, and I read Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. I totally forgot to tell you, I was Team Pentacles. So for our team, the bonus is that every prompt counts for 25 points, which is great. And then for the reversed, or the punishment, I guess you could say, your TBR must include a 500 plus page book. I had I had 5. So I read David Copperfield, which was 770 pages, Chain of Gold, Reaper's Gale, and the other 2 I did not finish. So I did get through over 600 pages of Oathbringer, and then The Shadow Rising I didn't even start. I have since started that, but I did not read that all in June. So then we come to Adventurathon with K-Beth Bookish, and this is the first time I participated in this. This was the first time that I'd seen K-Beth Bookish, and it was the first time I've seen the readathon, and so I was very excited. Totally check out her channel, because this is a great readathon and totally should participate. So you get to choose a character, and I chose a mage, and that is our quest is to make a new magical discovery. And so first you have to choose a tool. There's 2 choices. You can choose both, or you could just choose one. And I chose a wand, which was a magical item on the cover. And for that I read Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. And then, because I'm extra, I also read a book for the spell book. So I got a wand and a spell book. And that was a book on the cover, and that is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. And then we have a skill. There's 3 skills to choose from, and you already know I chose all 3. So the first one was Alchemy, 2+ genres, and I read Death or Something Like It by Terry Pratchett. That's the little short story for the Death series. And that one was only a page, but I totally read it. So totally counts. And then for Evocation and Element on the cover or in the book, and that I read The Siren by Kira Cass, because on the cover it's a whole lot of water. Water is definitely an element. And then we have Scrying. Can't even read my own writing. So Scrying, set in the future, and for that I read Home by Nnedi Okorafor. We had to start our quest and finish our quest, so you had to do at least 4 prompts, and so that was the minimum, and everything else was above that. So to start my quest, I had to read a book featuring magic, and for that I read Awaken by Rachel Humphrey Daigle. Actually, most of the books that I read have magic in it, so that was pretty easy. For the final quest, you have to read a 2023 debut, and for that I read Wayward by Amelia Hart. And then there's side quests. There was 5 side quests. Firstly, we had to create our own drink, so it could be like an iced tea, or it could be a cocktail, anything. Just some kind of beverage of choice that you created. And so my husband and I met some friends at Dave & Buster's. I don't know, it's probably been 2 years ago now. And there was a drink there that was a peanut butter, basically like a peanut butter cup with chocolate bitters in it. And so I kind of took that and tweaked it a bit. And this one we take ginger beer, basically ginger ale. Ginger beer I feel is a little more flavorful, it's a little more rich. Some peanut butter whiskey and chocolate bitters, and let me tell you, so good. Chef's kiss. So good. I love it. And even just the ginger beer and a drop of chocolate bitters in there to make it non-alcoholic, so good. But add that peanut butter whiskey in there, telling you, it's so worth it. Alright, so I got this whiskey that was on sale at the time, the Scatterbrain Peanut Butter Whiskey, because we wanted to try this drink, and I put 1 shot of that in the glass, and then I take the chocolate bitters, and you only need 1 drop. You could probably use an orange bitter too, or a citrus one if you would like. It would change the flavor profile a little bit, but so it wouldn't be quite as rich, it'd be a little more bright, but it would still be delicious. And then I usually use the Reed's ginger ale or ginger beer because it is so good, but Bundaberg would be really good as well. That one just is a little higher in sugar, so I try and avoid that one. So I use the Reed's Zero, which is sweetened with stevia. and I fill that up in the glass. I use the entire can to 1 shot of whiskey and 1 drop of chocolate bitters, and it is so delicious. So if you want to make it a little more fancy, you can take ginger cubes or crystallized ginger and kind of put a little cut in it and then put it on the brim of your glass for a garnish. I didn't even tell you what that was for. So the side quest was potion brewing, and that was to create a drink for your character. So there we go, and in honor of the reign of the Dragon Queen, I named my character Aeldia after the Dragon Queen. Then we could attend a magical academy, a book with a school setting, and of course I read Reign of the Dragon Queen by Candace Connor. There's a little school there for the dragon riders, so they learn how to take care of their dragons and how to ride their dragons and all of that. And then submit a research paper, a light or dark academia, and for that I read Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. I wasn't sure about that when I chose it, but by the time I finished reading, I'm like, yes, it is academia setting. I don't know if it's quite dark academia, it's not quite light academia, but it's definitely academia. Let's see, Study the Stars, set in space, and for that I read Reaper Man by Terry Pratchett. I wasn't quite sure. I originally had picked Home because I knew that was going to be set in space, but the very beginning of Reaper Man, they're like talking about, and in space there's this turtle with this disc world, and so it was awesome. Perfect, definitely fit. And then the last one was to read a high fantasy, and for that I chose Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, which of course I didn't quite finish. But I mean, I could technically put in Reaper's Gale, because that one is a high fantasy, although I consider that more of a military fantasy. So I mean, there, Chain of Gold, there's some others I probably could have put in there and completed it, but I chose Oathbringer, and so that's where we're going. So I didn't quite finish that one. So overall, I did much better in June than I thought I was going to do. Even kind of at my midway point, I'm like, oh, am I going to make this? I don't know. But I did pretty good. So for the readathons, overall, I pretty much completed all of the minimum requirements for the readathons. But I really didn't quite totally complete any of them. Yeah. But I'm going to call them all a win. Most of the parts that I didn't complete were extras. So yes, so I'm going to call that a win. So thank you for joining me as I did my little June Readathon wrap up. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any videos from me, and check out the description box for all the links to the amazing hosts for all the readathons and for their videos. And until next time, keep reading. Goodbye.